All right. In this video, I want to share with you why punishment doesn't work and a great strategy to expressing and sharing consequences for young people who are having struggles with following boundaries. Okay? So number one, don't punish. Don't use the word punishment. Try to get out of the world of punishment. Why is punishment unhelpful? I'll tell you why. It comes down to one reason. And that is because inside of the word punishment, the energy, the quality of punishment is judgment. And there's you can feel it. It's like getting punished. It's like, there's a charge inside of it. It's emotional. And anytime someone is receiving a punishment, they should and almost always will rebel, or be angry, or be upset, or be ashamed of themselves. It's going to have some kind of unhelpful emotional consequence, whether the punishment is explicit, like whether a parent is wanting them to feel punished so they don't do it again, or whether it's implicit, meaning a parent is like, you're going to get a consequence for this, which is really just, when you say a consequence like that, they really mean punishment, right? So try to get out of the world of feeling emotionally charged and upset when you're communicating a consequence, and try to eradicate the word punishment out of your vocabulary. Now, here's the thing. You can not use the word punishment, but still be communicating that you're punishing them if you're emotionally charged in the moment that you're communicating a boundary, right? Or you're removing a layer of independence from their life because they can't handle it, because they're not proving to be a responsible young person such that they have earned a level of independence that makes sense. This goes back to, and I'll say this again and again in these videos, for me, my definition of boundaries is that their boundaries intent, and the definition of boundaries is structure in a young people's lives to inspire them to become independent. Boundaries' main intent is to inspire people to be independent. Yes, of course, it's to keep them safe. It's to all the normal kind of traditional things that you hear about boundaries. Yes. And if you really look at the essence, the juice behind a boundary and what it's meant to do, it's meant for people to take in their own relationship to boundaries and then express it in their lives. Meaning, this is true for everybody. Whatever surrounds a person when they're growing up, meaning their environment, gets internalized. And so a person's relationship with boundaries will get expressed later in their life. Meaning, the way that parents express, communicate, pass down boundaries and structure to their child is the same way that the child will express boundaries in their own life. So meaning, if a parent is always or often charged or has that kind of punitive bent to expressing boundaries, then the young person is either going to do one of two things. One, they're not going to have any boundaries in their life because they're going to be pushing inside of themselves. They're going to be pushing back against the internal parent that they have around, like, I hated having boundaries in my life, so I don't want to have any. So they're just kind of saying no to a lot of things as opposed to having an independent yes in their life, right? So that's one thing. Two, and this is actually even more insidious and, in my opinion, even more unhelpful, they will walk into their lives having too rigid of boundaries and feel ashamed because the overbearing, over emotionally charged parent has now lives inside of them, and they have that voice in their head now, not like a schizophrenic voice, like a voice inside of themselves of like, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, or it's bad that you did this, right? So all this to say, don't use punishment. Don't use the word punishment, and try to get out of the world of punishment. And the number one way to do that is to navigate your own emotional charge when you are communicating a consequence. I like to use the word consequence or even result. But even that can get weaponized and feel like a punishment if I'm emotionally charged about something, if I'm sharing a consequence, or if I'm sharing a structure, even if I'm navigating or facilitating a family session and I'm expressing how I'm recommending to some parents, or even helping the parents express a consequence. If I'm emotionally charged and I have something personal in it for me and I'm expressing it, I can almost guarantee that the young person, A, isn't going to follow it, 2, is not going to be inspired to become more independent. I was just finishing a family session, which is why I was inspired myself to share this video with you, this information with you, is because someone, actually an authority figure for this young person, was saying, like, now you have to get punished. This was a therapeutic person doing this, so needless to say, it was very unsophisticated. But they were saying, like, now you have a punishment, meaning you can't do these things. Now, do you think that the young person was left feeling inspired to take some kind of action to become more independent? No. In fact, an obstacle was then placed inside of them in the form of the young person's desire to get into a power struggle with that person, because no one wants to be punished. This person was like, now you're going to get punished. And you think the young person was just like, oh, okay, oh well. No, man, they're going to fight. Of course they're going to fight. They're going to be like, hell no. That's unjust. It's ridiculous. You're stupid. Even if it actually made sense what the person was communicating, right? It adds this whole layer of emotional charge and emotional morass that makes the whole dialogue unhelpful. So regain a level of neutrality where it's not personal when you're communicating a structure or a boundary to them. Let them have any experience they want. They might be upset. They might feel like a victim, like, how could you do this to me? It's not fair, and all you have to return to is, if you start showing up a certain way, meaning you come home on time, you communicate in the way that I'm expecting you to communicate, you go to school, you are kind to people, like all of the structure that is both implicit and explicit in their world, as long as they're doing that, then you're going to feel as a parent, and you can even say this to them, I'll, as a parent, feel more inspired to give you more independence. In fact, I want you to be more independent, because when you go off to college or leave the house when you're 18, 19 or whatever, I want you to do that. I don't want you living in my home, into your 20s. Nobody wants that. So the more that you, son, daughter, child, show up in a way that inspires me to give you independence, the more I'm going to do that for you. But if you show up in a certain way that doesn't inspire me, where I can't trust you, or I don't want to trust you, or I shouldn't trust you, then I'm not going to do it. Leave it at that. Let them have their own emotional struggle with it. They can come to you with it. They can go to their friends. They can go to a therapist, whatever. But that's their responsibility. Your responsibility is to communicate really clearly, and ideally have them be inspired to want to be more independent vis-a-vis your boundaries. All right. All my best to you. You've got this. Stick with it. I'll see you soon.